Good evening. Good evening. I gotta wipe that banana off my mouth. Look. I was using the countdown to try to sneak in a banana. So, but good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Frontline News, where we bring you news and conversations from around the front lines of America and beyond. And we have an exciting show for you today. We're going to talk about some things going on in Baltimore um, that you're going to be really surprised that folks are living the way that they are living in Baltimore City. And it's not due to any fault of their own. It's due, unfortunately, to the policies of our city. But before we get into that deep conversation, really quick, let's do some housekeeping. Um, this episode of Frontline News is being brought to you by people empowered by the struggle. We are a one-stop shop for all struggles. If you have any issues that you're dealing with, especially here in Baltimore City, we ask that you reach out to us and give our organization an opportunity to help you navigate through whatever your struggles may be. Um, you could reach us by giving us a call at 443-355-8014. Again, that number is 443-355-8014. Or you could also reach us at our email, which I'm trying to put that up in real time. For some reason, it wasn't saved on here. But you could also reach us at our email at pebts.org@gmail.com. Again, we are a one-stop shop for all struggles that you may going through, whether it's housing, whether you're dealing with homelessness, whether you're dealing with maybe you're contemplating suicide, maybe you need workforce development, maybe you need life coaching and want to better yourself in life. Again, we are a one-stop shop for all these services. And we are a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation. We don't take off for our birthday, for your birthday, nor do we take off for Jesus' birthday. Also, this show is being brought to you by all those little fine sponsors that you will be seeing throughout the show on the bottom, being brought to you by Black USA. I'm sorry, blacknews.usa. And we got to thank the whole Donnie Glover team and the whole blacknews.usa for giving us the opportunity. Thank you, sir, for allowing us to come on this platform and have these conversations every week about community and so much more. Also, Donnie Glover is the home for the original Black Wall Street series. And don't forget, he's also an author. You can go on Amazon. You can go to a Black bookstore, like everyone's place, right there on North Avenue, and pick you up a copy of Unapologetically Black. And I also think he has a second book that's out in reference to Black Wall Street as well. So Donnie, don't shoot me for that. For that one, I apologize, but I do believe that there's a second book out as well. And again, pick yourself up a copy of at least Unapologetically Black, written by Donnie Glover. So now that the housekeeping is out of the way, and again, support all those fine sponsors. Even if you just pick one sponsor to support, whether you need a lawyer, whether it's edible arrangements, there's several fine advertisers that are going to be advertised on the bottom of your screen. Again, even if you just pick one to support, we appreciate it. I found out the second name of the book. Matter of fact, streaming down on the bottom, don't forget the Donnie Glover Show, Monday through Friday at 9 o'clock every day, right on Black USA News, right on your Facebook or YouTube channel. And the first book is Unapologetically Black. The second one is I Am Black Wall Street. And you can pick that up at Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, and of course at your Black bookstore retailer. So now that that's out of the way, let me introduce our host for our show. And I don't like to call nobody like every week I come on here and I know I say co-host and stuff, but these are the hosts. These are the official folks from People Empowered by the Struggle who are out here every day, we're getting the phone calls, we're navigating folks through whatever their issues may be. These are our frontliners. And a lot of times we like to tell folks that we are not the grassroots organization. We are actually the soil.
Oil.
We're the soil for the grassroots organization. So without further ado, the additional host of our show, not co-host of our show. Let me start with my dear sister, someone who I'm an only child, but I have definitely found a place within my heart to call you my dear sister. Folks, welcome Donna Tebron Green.
Good evening, Jason. Good evening. I'll take the co-host. I'll take the host. The one with the most. Like, it don't matter how you introduce us. Like, because we're always there. Like, I'm just here. I'm just here.
I appreciate you just wanting to be here. And again, from the beginning, of this whole putting together people empowered by the struggle. You have been a voice and an instrument, really and truly, to our organization. We can't play this song without you. So you're the most critical, important instrument, on our organization. So
who don't say that out loud?
And without further ado, let me introduce to y'all our our executive director. Why are you mute? Are you muted? No.
She being funny.
You're playing like silent pictures for us, but
we can't hear
executive.
You.
All right, yeah, we can't hear you. Our executive director, again, having technical issues every week. It seems to be a regular thing. She's
That's
also right. You're gonna take Tree's place. Look, she was a former candidate for mayor of Baltimore City. We're looking forward for her to run again in 2024, and we look for the community support. If you want someone who truly has a heart for the people, who truly doesn't matter what the situation may be, is going to try to help you navigate or find the resources necessary to navigate through your struggles, it's this woman right here. And without further ado, family, let's put our hands together for Yolanda Pulley, who's in silent picture mode.
All hail the queen.
Who's in silent picture mode.
We can't hear you.
So I think she's saying she's going
to log off.
She's going to log off and log back on or something.
Okay.
Like
her phone must have run.
No sign language, but
okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, we gotta move
Mr.
on.
Hunt. Mr. Hunt. I caught it. Mr. Hunt used to do the middle finger at us in Cherry Hill Middle School.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, he was our teacher.
You probably bringing up memories to everybody that's been in Cherry Hill.
Listen, I'm trying to tell you, everybody that's been in Cherry Hill Middle School and experienced Mr. Hunt, he'd like sit in your seat right now, sit down. You'd be like, Mr. Hunt, can I go to the bathroom? I said no. I said no right now. Sit down. He used to give us the middle finger all the time. He was the funniest, love teachers like that. They related to the students. And in our 40s, we still remember Mr. Hunt.
All right, let's see if Yolanda now. Can we hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I want to thank you once again for joining in and coming in and, being with us today. You know what, JC, you said something very important. You said, and we just like I keep telling people, Black women are the most resilient women on the face of the earth. That we're the closest thing you're gonna ever get to heaven, nor God. Because guess what? We birth nations from between our legs. So when we say we're the soil, this gonna sound weird, but plant your seed in us and watch you grow.
Ooh. I don't think I like that tagline.
I love it.
Just bring us your seed so we can plant it. Bring us your seed so we can plant it and watch it grow. Don't plant.
No, I like it because guess what? We're the ones that carry the children. We're the seed carrier. So plant your seed in us, which is a woman, and watch us grow.
Well, I guess because coming up next is one of your planted seeds.
Right.
that has kind of grown to be just an
The
outstanding
biggest
member.
pain of a seed.
Look, see, I was trying to give compliments. So, again, someone who has truly been instrumental, another instrumental person in people empowered by the struggle, has dug this out, from the beginning with us, is always there. I was surprised the other night. We had a meeting the other night, and we had to. We were throwing it. We were throwing a question out to everybody as to who remembers what someone had said, and this gentleman came in and knew it line by line exactly what someone had said.
Thank
So
God
Donna
he did.
pregnant.
right, I mean, because we had totally forgot. So, but without further ado, someone who I've learned to call son number one, because around these parts he is number one in our book. It's Duran. Duran, you there?
Can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
We can hear you,
Can't
but
see
we
you though.
can't. We always.
Boom.
There you go.
You know what I'm talking about?
Say congratulations to Donna.
Congratulations.
She's with child.
I didn't expect that one coming.
I don't think it's nothing funny about nobody joking about being pregnant these days.
Yes, you're birthing
In
a
certain
nation.
states, you can't even run and get abortion no more. Like,
No, I ain't talking about that. I ain't talking about
I am
abortion.
unbirthable. I am unbirthable.
No, not a real child, Donna. When I said you're pregnant
I don't
without a
know, because I
fetus.
told you I'm nauseous, and you just all of a sudden come up with Dawn is pregnant. Like, who says things like that? I'm
Donna.
almost 50 years old, ma'am.
No, listen to what I'm saying. When I say, matter of fact, I heard on Jason when he was doing one of them shows yesterday. I heard them say something about birthing of a vision, birthing of and we say the birth of a nonprofit. So when I'm saying you're pregnant, I'm talking about not
I don't
with
have
a
no
child.
thoughts for you. Listen, yeah, I don't have no seeds to listen.
We all got seeds, and it's
I
gonna
don't have
grow.
enough room to plant nothing in my head right now, because I can't have birth to nothing.
You gonna birth it. Watch
You
yours
got
come
us.
into Watch yours come into fruition. Watch. You might
Fruition?
not see the vision.
Did you say fruition?
Yeah, in fruition,
That's
whatever it's
not a
called.
word. No. Oh,
It's
no, no,
fruition,
no. Fruition.
fruition,
Fruition.
Fruition.
fruition,
Fruition.
fruition,
It's not
Thank you.
fruition. It's fruition.
Fruition.
fruition,
Fruition.
fruition.
Yeah.
I said that.
No, you said petition or something. Something you said.
We
This is a
birthing a
recorded show.
petition.
Just listen back.
This is about
Birthing a
just as
petition.
bad. This is about just as bad as the old film Birth of a Nation. And if you know about the film Birth of a Nation. So
Go ahead, Deron.
What's that?
Duran.
You got something to say? Your introduction was happening.
He ain't come in with this whole, oh Lord, so what's going on with you, Devon? Oh, wait, go.
Watch what he do.
We lost him.
No, he didn't. Oh, he's not
He
on?
about to do something fancy.
No, we lost him.
Oh.
We lost him totally. He dropped out totally.
Wait a minute, Devon.
And look, family, while we're waiting on Duran to come back, just really quick, just to let y'all know, y'all can join us live. We haven't had anyone join us yet, but we'd love to hear from y'all. Y'all can join in live with our StreamYard and be a part of the conversation. So don't be afraid to want to log in and show y'all lovely faces. We want to hear from you and see from you as well. But
in addition, Jason, we'd like to know what if you guys are interested in us having a show on something that you're interested in, and you have some ideas that you want us to talk about, spend time on, investigate, whatever it is, because Yolanda and I, we some good CIA FBI's. Like you gotta know.
I think we have what's his name? Sherlock Holmes in our blood.
Girl, I'm trying to tell you, we from them parts.
Or Christopher Agatha or somebody.
Oh, you don't want to kind of mess with these Nancy Drew kind of
we coming for you.
the Hardy family. I won't say Hardy boys, the Hardy girl family. Remember that the Hardy boy detectives. Remember that?
No,
I
but
thought they
Yolanda,
was wrestlers.
is that a compliment?
We're not talking about wrestlers.
No, not the Hardy boys like that. No, it was called the Hardy boys. They were like private investigators. They were
I
like
got something important to say.
junior private investigators.
Oh, we're like Scooby Doo and them.
We don't have no
If it wasn't
veins.
for you pesky kids.
There you go. Here you go. I
Pesky.
thought it was
Wait.
no. You said pescally kids. It's meddling. It's usually meddling. If it
And
wasn't
they
for
said,
you meddling
and they
kids,
don't say pescally, they say pesky.
Pesky.
Where you at, Yolanda? You
Yeah,
throwing all your.
pescally.
So I'll go to sleep. Look,
Well,
this should go ahead and be. But one subject we absolutely gonna have to touch on, you guys, is like the overstatement of charges. The overstatement, as well as us getting our director of inmate affairs on for him, the fight that he's fighting, because a lot of you guys don't know that we work on exonerations as well. So we absolutely, if you know any family members or anybody that's went through the system that was wrongfully incarcerated, anyone that's been pulled over by the police, or just whatever the violation was with an overstatement of charges, I'd like to know. I absolutely like to know, because I've had 2 situations with the same police or the same state trooper with an overstatement of charges. The first time, I was found not guilty on 2 charges, because it was 4 serious charges. I was found not guilty on 2 charges, and I was acquitted on 2 charges. And now I done got pulled over by the same state trooper with 5 serious charges this time.
And so you did find out that was him?
Yolanda, I had not found out what the name was, because I told you, like, on certain, when you pull up the Maryland case search, it doesn't come up. So I can't find my original case. I can't find it, but I'm sure I have some emails or something. So I'm gonna look for it, but I know that's the same. I know that's the same trooper. I know it is. His name is Fair. How unfair is that? Exactly. So I'd like to know if anybody out there has any stories, any situations, anything they went through, including someone that that was wrongfully incarcerated, whether they were exonerated, whether they got out. We like to hear your story. I'm done.
Deron, you look like something on your mind.
Nah, brother, I'm chilling, brother.
Oh.
No, you ain't. The day of all days, you want to chill.
Well, now, if someone's on my mind, I'd be doing this.
Yeah, that's true.
Them fingers, them hands.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Jason. Let's get into our show.
Well, there's so much going on, and really quick, I just wanted to just touch bases really quick on the whole Anand Syed case. So if you're just waking up or just tuning in, of course, Syed has been released of convicted murder charges.
They released him?
The prosecutor requested for him that murder charges be thrown out and him to be released.
That was Maryland.
The judge vacates his conviction after serving almost 2 decades in prison. First of all, let's give our prayers and our condolences to the murder victim here, because again, this now brings up question as to where's the murderer, who's the murderer,
exactly,
and there needs to be justice, of course, for this young lady. But Syed, who the whole time has been pleading that he's been innocent, we had an opportunity on DMV Daily to do a story on him, and we actually brought the folks in from Serial Podcast that came in, in which they did an extensive research behind it. They actually went out and did an investigation, and it was one of their hottest podcasts that they had, almost 2 million views on that one podcast, just in relations to his case. And those of you who may not be
don't forget HBO did one.
Yeah, I saw that with the special.
HBO came out and videotaped the show that we did in reference to investigating Serial, and they did a documentary all around the whole Syed case. What's interesting is that the Serial Podcast is known for doing their own investigation in reference to these really high-profile cases, especially in a case like this, where someone was claiming innocence. And based on, all the information that was brought to the Serial podcast, they too had concluded that Syed couldn't have possibly been the person involved, especially with the witness that they totally blew out a witness, didn't even, recognize a witness who said, nah, I saw him at the library, this is what time I saw him, and I bear witness to that. They just threw that particular statement out. So,
Well, Jason, it was I want to commend Marilyn Mosby for actually bringing him back in court. The part that I don't like is why are you questioning what time or when she did it. I don't. She did it because you have to give somebody time enough to review a case. Not saying that in her tenure she had other things to do, but you got to think real long and hard, and a lot of evidence has to be presented. It doesn't matter what a podcast says. It doesn't matter what HBO says. It said what the evidence says. So I want to thank Marilyn Mosby. I want to commend her on actually, bringing it back to court and freeing this man. She did her due diligence. Yes, she did. And she done it with a lot of incarcerated individuals. And we might not even see it again, to be honest. We might not see it again.
That's sad, because there is a lot of guilty people that's locked up. But there's an unfair amount of innocent people that's locked up for things they didn't do that's serving life sentences plus.
Then when we look back at the criminal justice system and we look back at, how judges and prosecutors played roles in actually mass incarceration because they was getting kickback. It was too, matter of fact, Darius needs to look, what happened to Darius' case up in Glen Mills? Because, two of those judges actually went to jail a couple of weeks ago.
I requested Darius to go to Glen Mills. They wanted to send Darius into a 30-day drug treatment program.
No, but what I'm saying is, no.
You know why I chose Glen Mills? I chose Glen Mills because I was familiar with Glen Mills from when we were younger, with Clee being locked up in Glen Mills, and I knew it was a pretty good program. So there was nothing like, no. Darius did that.
No, two judges that was overseeing juvenile cases that was sending children.
I know they was taking. I know. I heard that they was sending children to jail, but no, that had not that. I did hear
what happened with that.
What I find interesting about Saeed's case, and I just wanted to bring this up because this goes back to a case that we're dealing with right now with our director of inmate affairs for our organization, who has been wrongfully incarcerated, and is serving time right now, and we're working on trying to get him exonerated. But what I find interesting is that it says that the judge, in reference to this case, cited materials in the state investigation that was not properly turned over to defense attorneys, as well as the existence of two suspects who may have been improperly cleared as part of the investigation. And you hear this too often, where there's witnesses that were never even introduced, evidence that was never introduced, and you're fighting based on selective evidence that the prosecutors bring that you have to kind of fight against. And then you have other evidence that in many cases exonerates you and proves that you're innocent, but they don't do the right thing in reference to bringing this out because they're focused on prosecuting you.
Just the guilty.
Right. Yep. They're focusing on trying to get that guilty verdict on you. And this is a clear case example of, in Saeed's case, again, there were witnesses that I know that they never took the testimony. Because we personally heard from one of the young ladies, who basically stated that she gave the information that she saw Saeed in the library.
Classmate or something, right?
It was a classmate.
Yeah,
it was a classmate. So, this is a prime example of, again, the criminal justice system not working like it's supposed to. But I'm glad in some cases, even if it does take 20 years, that at least there's a process to allow you to keep fighting, if you're serious about your freedom. If you're serious about your freedom,
sometimes.
I don't care if it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have actually two things. It's crazy that we're sitting here talking about it because I just got a text from the Innocent Project that says Yolanda
Me too.
oh, you did? Serial podcast just walked free after 23
Yeah,
years of
I'm
prison.
not telling you.
Yeah. And then I have something this, and see, this is why I always go back to, you know, he just like he said, it's a condition, it's a mindset. It is the 13, but in other aspects, it's also a way of life for the prison system. 13th Amendment in the United States Constitution said that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except for as punishment for a crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction.
So they still slaves. And they wrote it in the Constitution just so you know that you're going to be a slave. Like they literally treat you like a slave. They do.
Well, Jason, tell about the one that we seen.
It's interesting that you bring that up because we've been watching documentaries over the last few weeks, me and Yolanda, and we watched this one documentary called "The Cotton Picking Truth," and basically it really talks about the fact that we have never really been declared free.
Yeah.
That even if you look at the Emancipation Proclamation, you know that we were never. It was never declared that we were free. And in some cases, the 13th Amendment was really designed, and we all know this. We've talked about this before. The 13th Amendment was really and truly was to place us back into involuntary servitude, or in many cases back into enslavement. And in many cases, they knew that, you know, once the so-called written law and the abolishment of enslavement in this country was removed, that for many of us, when you take the slave master's hands away from us, that many of us, in some cases, would not have survived. And that's what has happened. For many of us, we didn't survive because we couldn't live necessarily off the plantation. There was no work. We weren't given the 40 acres and a mule.
Well, actually, Jason, the one that we watched last night, this is interesting, Donna. Back in the 15 and 1600s, slaves actually earned a wage. They worked on the plantation, but they also was paid. Now, what they did was, because, you know, slaves started suing their slave owners for wages. That's when they took out they took out the servitude part and said, you know what, we're making more money by not giving you any money. So we just want y'all to be slaves and we don't want to pay you. What does that actually sound like in this world today? It's called minimum wage and servitude.
What's interesting is in this documentary that we watched yesterday, in 1665 there was a court case where, you know, again, Yolanda tells you the story. Back in 1660, basically there was a group of slaves, 11 of them, that kind of helped build the Dutch colony. All right. So there wasn't, back in the 1600s, there wasn't a whole lot of slaves. There was 11 slaves that basically helped them to forge the new country, to forge the new land.
But they was the ones that was paid.
Right. But they had a different agreement. It wasn't enslavement like we know enslavement to be, with there was some torture, there was some punishment, but there was still some sort of negotiation or bargaining of slaves. So slaves actually, those who were enslaved had the ability in some cases to negotiate some of the things that they wanted in the new world, because there really was no rules, there was no courts.
Wait a minute, Jason, I got a question for them when you finish.
Things were still being figured out, right? So what happened was, out of these 11 slaves, 3 of them decided to run away in 1665. 2 of them were white and 1 was black. And what's interesting is the court at the time, because they set up a court in the New World, the court at the time basically gave white privilege to white people and said, okay, well, you ran away. Because what would happen is, when you were enslaved back in 1600s, you basically were indentured. You were an indentured servant, all right, and you gave your services away for a certain amount of years. The average typical year was 7 years. So you basically would go to somebody and say, "Look, I want to go to the New World with you. I'm willing to travel to the New World, and I'm going to give you my labor for 7 years. Okay. So these white folks, as well as this one black person, basically were indentured servants for 7 years. But when they ran away, because, of course, there was some brutality, there was some harsh living conditions, and they decided to run away from the master that they were living on, the land that they were living on. What's interesting is that basically when they got to court, they all still owed 7 years. But what the judge had decided was that for the white boys, they're going to get 3 more years added to the 7 years of indentured servitude.
And a lifetime for the black man.
And they gave a lifetime for the black man. And that was the first start. That was the first start of what I told Yolanda. I said, that's the first, basically racist court. Basically, the justice system being unjust to us. The first case of it back in 1665.
Because it's the narrative. Because black people automatically are already guilty. They guilty of something, even if you don't know you're guilty. Like you have you ever been convinced by?
But in 1665,
Jason, that's why they in that mentality. They bought that stuff from over there. Like all
Wait a minute, Don, I have a question for you.
Yeah. They was living like that.
Yeah.
Jason, what was the name of that? What was the name of that place again?
New Amsterdam.
New Amsterdam. Now, in New Amsterdam, I have a black history question. I mean, I have a history question for you guys. What was it after it became New Amsterdam?
What did New Amsterdam become? Do you know?
Yeah.
Does anybody know? And we'll give a few seconds for those in the comment box that want to tell us what landmass did New Amsterdam originally? What did it become afterwards?
Without Googling it?
Without Googling it. And somebody already answered it. Robert McCarthy has already
that's Beezy.
He's already answered it.
New York.
Became New York City.
Yep.
Became New York City.
I guess he would know. Isn't that where he from? You
so
better know.
Wait a minute. Clearly, they taught them their history there. Unlike
they ain't teach us out, sir. Like, hey, there you go.
Another interesting fact about that is that New York, Virginia, and Maryland became the first aggressive slave states.
I know, and Maryland still is an aggressive slave state. What do you mean?
No. When I say the ones they adopted,
they were the ones that adopted. The whole
most cruelest punishment.
Exactly, and they still got the cruelest punishment. What are you talking about?
Right.
It doesn't matter. I was telling people who don't know.
Beat one besides out.
And those who were enslaved that were black at the time, weren't really considered to be Africans or anything. They called them American Creoles. American Creoles was what they were recognized at, and they actually had more rights and more freedoms than what most folks thought. They weren't placed into slavery in the same sense of how slaves were brought in by the Dutch or in the Spaniards from the Ivory Coast. They weren't brought in. Again, these were more of indentured servants. So they basically had volunteered their labor in order to come to the New World, in order to.
And now we're volunteering our labor when we let them pay us minimum wage.
And slaves was not owned, contrary to belief in the beginning. Those who were enslaved were not owned by a single person. They were owned by a corporation.
So just like we're owned by the corporation now.
They were owned by I believe it was called the British Tobacco Company or something like that. But they were owned by.
Yeah, the first one was tobacco. It wasn't cotton.
Yeah, the first cash crops wasn't cotton. Cotton didn't come until the late 1700s, 1800s. That's when cotton became the cash crop that it was. But in the beginning, it was crops like tobacco, hemp,
sugar,
indigo,
sugar.
Because again, some of the first islands that were colonized in the Caribbean became sugar plantations.
You know who started growing rice first?
Yeah, it's another thing. So you would think, let's ask this question.
Wait, you said growing rice? How you grow rice?
Let's start this first. Where do you think that rice in this country,
Mr. Ben?
Where do you think that rice would come from in this country?
The supermarket.
No. Come on now. We're talking about history.
Now, I really didn't know you grow rice like that. Listen, I'm a nerd, but there's certain things I don't remember.
Yes, we grow rice, and you would never think of this. But again, who do you think was the first one to introduce rice? And I'll give you some examples. Do you think that it was the Asians? Because there was Asians. Remember, they helped with the railroad. They did dry cleaning. Well, not dry cleaning back then. They washed the clothes. When the West was won. So there was Asians here. There was also Indians that were brought here as well. I'm talking about Indians from like the Hindus, folks like that. They were brought here. They also had a rice culture. But who would you? And then you also have Africans.
You about to say the blacks?
It was Africans. Africans were the first ones to introduce rice to this country. One of the first ones to introduce rice. And matter of fact, they actually grew it. It was a cash crop. It was a crop that basically.
And they came and stole it.
How you grow rice? Is that why they say rinse it off first?
Ancient African secret. It ain't no ancient Chinese secret. It's an ancient African art, and actually, it's an art form. When they showed it in this documentary, it's actually an art form. There's a talent or a technique to grow rice, and it's taught, and passed down to Africans in the villages. And so when they basically started bringing over Africans to the New World, they realized that, hey, wait a minute. They have a talent here, and we need a crop, because they didn't really have a crop at the time. Tobacco was one crop, but they were always looking for that.
But that was the black people crops. They was growing it in their
right. They were growing it out on their own
land.
Right. And that was the other thing, because they were considered to be American Creoles. They weren't, again, the same enslaved people that we know enslavement to be. They had more rights, so they were given land to basically, till and take care of on their own. In some cases, they were given an ox or given an animal on their own.
They stole our rice.
By those,
they stole everything from us. Like it's nothing surprise. Like every idea we had, every song we had, every beat we had, everything that we ever had, and that's why they go.
Who was that? It's mighty funny that she said that. Who was that sold their stuff for a song?
That was New York. They said that New York City was sold to the Indians for a song.
Yolanda, but they steal everything. That's why they destroy everything in their path, so we can forget about, not talk about. In the slave days, they hushed. They didn't say anything. We talk too much. We talk too much because, they had them in fear so bad that you dared not talk about what happened to you. You dared not talk about the rape. You dared not talk about the way they treated our men and our kids. You dared not talk about it. And now, even in our grandparents' society, it's like everything about life is hushed. Like, don't talk about that. Don't ask no questions about that. I'm like, well, see, that just I need to know what's happening. Not like I shouldn't be the age that I am. Now I'm finding out where I came from. That there's no way. Because
now we're living in an information age. Like everything is at arm's length. Like you don't literally have to do particular studies because people are doing it for you already. And they're placing it in these they're placing it in articles.
And who do you see the number one person in any community? Who do you see always on these things?
It'd be
us. It'd be us.
And it'd be kids. Like we start them early. Like as soon as we want to deal with them, we give them a phone.
But you know what? They didn't expect us to be able to afford these phones. So, all this stuff, like we can come out with stories. We could be our own reporters. We could tell the truth. We could tell them. That's why so many cops went down.
Seek information and knowledge. And again, back in the day, I remember my mom struggled, to try to order the Encyclopedia Britannica, and
we had it.
We had it.
The set. We never completed the set. We couldn't afford to complete the set.
Granny ordered a set, and then somebody had gave us a set from somewhere. We had like 2 and 3 different sets, and guess who stayed in them? Me. I was always reading the encyclopedia. Always. Well, Donna, I don't remember much now, but I read it.
Okay, damn. Wow. Well, this just goes to show you about servitude, because that's what's going on down in McCullough Homes.
Somebody read that.
What is prognosis?
Out loud.
You might as well just add them. Just add them.
Huh?
Just add them.
Yeah.
People had to call in.
B, you're gonna have to call in, B.
What is
Donna,
the prognosis? The past is relevant in many ways in our culture, I guess, our culture, because the people who are inherited this country after the so-called founding fathers sowed the seeds of our Black folks, destruction, still have not renounced the evil that their fathers handed them. What is the prognosis?
Yeah, and he's right about that, because when we talked about this as we were watching the documentary, I told Yolanda, I said, well, technically, this thing as far as reparations is concerned is global, because it's not just about just
it's a can of worms, though.
Well, the federal government allowed it to take place since its birth. You had states that enforced it, from birth, from existence. You had cities and counties and municipalities that enforced it and upheld it. And then you also had those globally that, that whether you were Dutch or whether you were Portuguese, wherever you came from, the Spaniards, the British, they were all engaged in enslavement in some way. So technically, when you look at reparations, you can't talk about reparations on a local level. You have to talk about reparations
internationally
on an international level,
but
because
they
there
won't.
are countries that have built their wealth.
That's Pandora's box, though, Jason. They will never do that because it's too many people. And then, unfortunately, you'll have those white folk that got 1% Black in them that'll try to claim, oh, y'all owe me reparations too because I got 1% Black in me. It's a can of worms that they will never open.
The question would be, who would receive the reparations? Like, a skin color wouldn't be the reason why you receive reparation. Like, your family would have to have, but your family would have to have some sort of slavery background, like as a
they burnt all of our stuff. How can you prove it? That's the problem.
Right.
We can't prove it. They done burnt the churches. They burnt everything.
Right.
So
right, and it didn't matter if you were a descendant of slavery or not. Just the fact that you were a person of color, you were discriminated against.
Yeah, but then you have situations where, like when we were talking about China for one. All right, we see how the Asians look now, but that's not how they looked when the Asian culture was, first introduced. They were Black.
Of course.
Yeah, but see, another problem is that they're not going to admit what they did because we had too many presidents that had too many slaves. So they're not going to admit what they did was wrong. And when they admit what they did was wrong, they know that the problem is that Black people need to understand their stance in the United States, not, their position. We had everything taken from us. Not only were we bought here, America was built off of Black people. So either way, they owe us.
I mean, it's still being built off of Blacks, though.
Correct. Correct.
It's still being built.
So we know the problem. What do you think they'll resolve that with? Besides, don't talk about it. Forget about it. Like, because every time somebody get close enough, they because there is no way they'll agree to pay a bunch of Black people nothing because they don't think we're human.
Right. Yep, it said that too. And another crazy part is, Donna, is that the woman that kept suing all her slave owners, they got rid of all her papers, and then she disappeared.
Of course.
There was no more
records.
The
thing that shocked me, the town in California that gave that Black family that land back. When I say it shocked the hell out of me, it shocked me. They gave them Black people, and they built a beach and all of that. Like it was like almost like a resort area. They gave it back to that Black family.
Yeah, I see that.
You got to understand that, again, we were never given a fair chance. Even with the so-called American Creoles, they were never given a fair chance. I told you about the case in 1665 where we were done unjust in reference to running away, where we were given a harsher sentence than anybody else. So that really began, according to the documentary, that really began the more harsher punishment for folks of color and the establishment of white supremacy, or the establishment of white privilege. Because you were white, you always got a lighter sentence. Because you were white, you always got more amenities, or you got more perks.
You get a warning, we get time.
even though in many cases they were treated the same when it came down to the indentured servitude, because again, they were doing the same thing. It wasn't just black folks that said, hey, I'll sell you myself for 7 years. It was white folks that were doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
And they were living in some of the same harsh conditions. They were treated almost the same way as any other indentured servant was treated. The problem came in is later on, as the New World continued to be established, those who were white that were Dutch that originally settled the land decided that those who are coming in are going to get privilege or going to be classified their privilege based on their color. And of course, we ended up being the sacrificial lamb in the process.
And we did more than the sacrifice, Donna. So in order for us to learn how to live, and even they considered the person free, but the children had to go. The children were not free.
So yeah, because you read their wills and stuff. In their wills, it stated for the life of the child and their children, they belong to a family member. Like they would really will that when they die, they done already willed it over to their children. Yeah. So that literally made a lifetime of slavery.
But that's why I said
in Thomas Jefferson's case, when they was talking about, what was that guy name? That what was his slave name that he grew up with?
Oh, you're talking about the young man that he grew up with. I forget the young man that he grew up with. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I know what you're talking about. He grew up with a childhood friend. It wasn't
Xavier, was it?
It might have been Xavier or something like that. But he grew up with a childhood friend that basically was enslaved.
Yeah, he knew that he had to enslave him and his family. He knew he had to enslave him and his family. So when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, that's the reason why he included certain things. But then they said that he contradicted himself because he had over 250 slaves that he refused to free. And then later on, because black people overheard conversations of their white slave masters, and they said that we are born equal and this, that, and the third. That's why they took the word slave out of the Constitution, and they also took out the word what was the other word that they took out? It was something else that they took out on purpose. So slaves could not
recognized.
No, not only was they not recognized, because they started feeling like they had some power. That's why they started stripping them and started doing what they do. But they started stripping them because they started suing their slave owners. And once they started suing their slave owners, they were winning.
Right. So once the American Creoles were documented as those that were a lot smarter than the average Africans that were being brought over in the late 1700s and late 1800s. Those that were American Creoles learned the laws of the New World and learned how to use it to their advantage to fight for certain rights.
Yeah, and another thing is that the reason why they became Christians is because it said that back then you were not allowed to enslave a Christian. And guess what? So they got smart.
The superior religion, the one, like, if you don't serve my religion, then like that's the problem.
Recognized.
No, but see, that's the problem with what's going on right now, because you cannot make somebody believe in what you believe in. I get it. Everybody needs something.
No, Donna. They only did it. They only did it because it was in the Constitution that they could not enslave a Christian. So when slaves,
so that's why black people couldn't go to church.
No. We're talking about before all that happened. This is in the beginning, when there was no slavery. It was just servitude. That's what we're talking about. So in the beginning, they became Christians because in the Constitution it said you could not enslave another Christian.
Because it's trickery. It's trickery. If you join my religion, then you better than
they didn't want them to join. That's the thing. They did not want them to join.
Yolanda, that's going to be a whole nother subject for a whole nother day, because that's a whole long time. We done missed our whole. Got 10 minutes.
I need everybody to watch the Cotton Picking Truth and Slavery. What was the other one called, Jason? The Making of Slavery and the Making of America.
I forget the title of the second one, but If you have Amazon Prime, you can go to PBS documentaries, and there's a whole series of documentaries
I've
on
been watching
enslavement.
Forbidden History. You ever watch that Forbidden History? It talks about everything old school. It like from the beginning, it's like a bunch of Bible stuff, whole bunch. Forbidden History.
Well, that's another reason why they said the Bible was changed, because when slaves started getting a part of, you can't enslave another Christian because that was in the Bible, and it came out in the Constitution, because everything that they built on was the Abrahamic belief. So when they took it out, when they changed the Bible, they changed it to obey your slave masters.
To put them
right. And the documentary is called "Slavery and the Making of America," and it talks about the beginning of the British colonies in America. And again, there's a lot of things that we didn't understand of how. And like I said, we keep forgetting indentured servitude is a lot different than being placed into slavery, like we understand it to be in the late, like I said, 1700s, late 1800s. That was a whole different formula, but I still say that even though, so again, looking at it from this documentary, Slavery and the Making of America, we were never given a fair chance. And when you look at, even our Caribbean brothers and sisters, all of those who right now are trying to denounce the Queen and the Virgin Islands and all those islands down there, they're trying to denounce
Barbados, Bahamas,
right, again, to me, all of those countries are due for reparations, because when you really look at the history, if you go back and you look at the history of those white settlers in those regions, and including in the New World here, all of them prospered and became millionaires. All of them.
Yeah, but if you're talking about back then, where they used to go raid people's land and take stuff.
They stole everything and murdered people. They came with guns and we had fists out. Like, come on now.
No, I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about over there where Queen Elizabeth is. Her grandfather, which was who, Henry or George to somebody, the great
King, King George, I think.
And for our last few minutes,
I watched a lot.
Yeah, they just stole everything. They walking around with the diamond they stole from India. They carrying the thing right in front of people's face, right on national TV with the big old diamond they stole from Africa. Like, that is so disrespectful.
With our last few minutes, we got a guest on really quick.
Hey,
hey everybody, how y'all doing?
Welcome
for joining us.
Thank you for let me join. I love the conversation you guys are having. It's powerful, and I couldn't help but to join in.
I know that's
we appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? What do you think about reparations as a whole? Like, this conversation comes up all the time, and I keep talking about that we as descendants of Africans are definitely due reparations internationally.
Me as a man personally, I just speaking as a man, it really hurts for me to ask for anything. It just, it's like plucking something right out my soul to get me to do that. So I won't be asking anyone for anything for me, my family, or for my future generations. I'll be getting it out the sweat of my back, and out my blood for real. And if they would, the better thing for them to do, as far as the whole human race, is to acknowledge their wrongs, which they never have. And if they might have never, they might have touched around the edges of whatever the hell they did wrong,
but they never got to the core.
Oh my goodness, they never really dug their own heart out and said it's yours.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy that you say that, because with like the Japanese, during World War II, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, they rounded up tens of thousands of Japanese and put them in camps. Well, they apologized to them and they gave them restitution. They gave them reparations for holding them in encampments. Why can't
the whole legislation bill?
Right. Why can't
because Jason, when they come together, they stick together. Us, we can't even get people to agree that we're owed anything. And like, as soon as somebody come through and say, "I give you 500 to shut up," they're gonna shut up. Like, we don't stick together for nothing. That's the problem. That's why we have the issues we have, because we would rather trust somebody else with our future than trust ourselves.
And on top of that, like we're one of the only races that can actually be bought. Like we have a mind state that where
Well,
we
I
can
don't know about
actually
that,
be
Deron,
bought.
because I'm right. No, I don't know about that.
It's the
I don't.
conditioning because we're used to being bought and slave. But Robert,
Right. So
There you
we
go.
can
Robert, can
literally
we
be
finish
bought.
this because our
Post-traumatic
time is up?
post-traumatic
Can you
enslaved
come on
syndrome.
next Monday? Can you come on next
Sure,
Monday with us and we have a
sure.
part 2 of this conversation?
Oh,
Yes,
so
yes.
we're gonna
I
continue
would
to
end it
this.
on. I would like to end it on this. There's a reason why they didn't elect the Jewish folks to have their own month.
Wait a minute,
Why,
you do
why
know
is
that
that?
we're now celebrating somebody heritage for a month and we only get it one with 28 days. What is
When
this?
I
It
speak,
it was
when I
Hispanic?
speak, when I
It was
when I
Hispanic
speak it
Heritage
from the
Month.
heart and for love from everyone in the world, everyone in the world has my love in my heart. And when I speak, it's about us all as a race, and hopefully we can get on the same accord. And
Mm-hmm.
so everything I say has to do with that. And when I spoke on our Jewish brothers and sisters, I spoke on they have a good reason for not wanting a month to themselves about their bad history.
Mm.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, we're gonna have to continue this conversation
yeah,
We
next
that's
Monday.
deep.
continue.
That's deep. That's
Definitely.
deep. Appreciate you, my brother.
Much
Definitely
love,
Slavery.
you
appreciate it.
guys. I love the conversation. Baltimore needs it. The brothers and sisters need it all around the world, y'all.
I know that's
Well,
We're
right.
guess what?
trying.
We're gonna continue this conversation next week, and we're gonna ask people to join us in the conversation on 2020 Black slavery.
Hey,
Does it still exist, or I mean, is in every part of our system, from education to housing to financial aspects to the banks? But we're gonna
To the
finish this
person.
conversation next week.
All right.
And we appreciate you, my brother.
much love, y'all. All
Thank
right,
you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
all right.
Wow.
3 minutes.
Well, actually, we
Less than
have
Oh
that.
no,
one.
Yeah,
1.
less than that. So I'll wrap this up really quick. Reparations for us. I don't care whether or not you could prove or not that you've been enslaved or not. The simple fact that the black skin is the most targeted and most hated by white America,
Even our
European
own.
America, and even our own, to me, justifies us getting reparations.
Mhm. So I guess we'll say what? What are we saying? Good night. See you next week.
Yeah, Donna, go ahead and Deron, go ahead and end us out. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead, Deron.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Holla at us next week, next Monday, 6 p.m. I'll let you go.
And join us.
And he did the Russell Simmons. Good night. God bless.
Good night. Good night.
Good night. Wow.
Well, yeah, saw that message at the last minute there. We appreciate you, Brother Art. Why don't you come on next week and let's talk a little bit more about this next week. We definitely need to have a conversation about this.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.